Welcome, everybody. It is December 8th, Selection Sunday. I just finished watching Selection Sunday. It's about 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And today, I'm going to make predictions for this playoff. I'm going to react to the selections. But let's hop into it. Top to bottom, let's react to each seed. Number 1, Oregon. Makes a lot of sense. You go 13-0. You win a big conference in the Big Ten. Easy pick here at number 1. Number 2, Georgia. You won the SEC, and it was never in doubt. After you win the SEC, you're going to get that 2 seed behind Oregon. Number 3 is Boise State. And look, this is insane. If SMU had won their conference championship, they'd probably be here at 3, but they fell to Clemson, and Boise State jumps up to number 3. I think this does point out a pretty obvious flaw in the selection format, not the selection committee, not their choice, but the format itself. As Boise State, highest ranked conference champion, as this 3rd seed, but I think we all know Boise State probably isn't on the same level as a Texas and Ohio State, etc. So I don't know what the answer to that is, but the way the conference champions get automatic bids, the way they get these buys, it is kind of questionable. But at number 4, Arizona State, a lot of people were kind of split between Arizona State or Clemson taking this spot, as Clemson was at 17 as they won their conference championship, and Arizona State was at 15. The main argument being that SMU was the 8 seed that Clemson beat, and Arizona State beat the 16 seeded Iowa State Cyclones. But Arizona State went out and blew out Iowa State, and blowing a team out like that, it's gonna be more impressive than a long buzzer beater field goal. I totally agree with Arizona State taking this 4 seed and taking the first round bye. The 5 seed, Texas, it's just correct. They were ranked 2nd. They lost in a very close one that went all the way to overtime in their conference championship. Perfect spot here at 5. Penn State here at 6, and honestly, I did expect Penn State to fall below Notre Dame, as Notre Dame was ranked 4th in the college football playoff poll with Georgia behind them. So I thought they would lean towards Notre Dame. I knew Texas was probably a lock for the 5 seed after they did lose to Georgia, but I did expect Notre Dame to jump Penn State, as Penn State lost and Notre Dame sits there at 11-1. But the committee did say they're not going to punish these teams for playing in their conference championships. Even if they lose, they're not going to punish these teams when there's teams that did not play. And they stuck by it. I didn't expect that. I didn't expect them to stand by their words so strongly. But I'm so glad they did. And it does just bring a level of respect to the college football selection committee that has been lacking recently. I do definitely respect the standing by the words that have been said earlier, standing by the decision that was made earlier to value these conference championships that way. And I do think it is the correct way to do that. Notre Dame probably won't, but this could also end up being a push for Notre Dame to get in a conference. I do find it ridiculous that Notre Dame refuses to get in one, but with how much money they make, there is no need to. This could possibly be a push to force them into a conference, and I really wish that would happen. But Notre Dame is here at 7. They're going to play Indiana in South Bend, so it's going to be the Indiana Bowl, and it's going to be a good one. 2 teams that haven't really played a hard schedule whatsoever, but have played quite close. Indiana played quite close with Ohio State. Actually, I guess it wasn't really close. They didn't look horrible against Ohio State. And Notre Dame, of course, their only losses to Northern Illinois, but they also just really haven't impressed me with anyone they've played. So this game is going to be really interesting in showing what these teams can actually do, as they are such question marks. Ohio State stands here at 8. I honestly think they should be above Notre Dame. I think this team is obviously better. I personally would take a 1 point loss to Oregon and a 3-point loss to Michigan over a 3-point loss to Northern Illinois University. But at the end of the day, they are 10-2, so I somewhat understand it, and they still get a home game. So Ohio State here at 8, I'm not too upset with. Same thing can be said with Tennessee at number 9. Didn't play in the conference championship, but had themselves a very, very strong season, standing at 10-2, and they have that rough loss against Arkansas, but other than that, a very, very strong season. At number 10, you have Indiana. When you have an 11-1 Big Ten team, they're going to get in. Whether they should or not, they're going to get in. But honestly, Indiana has a very comparable season to a team like Notre Dame, where they really didn't play anyone, and the one good team Indiana played, they lost to. But I'm personally taking the loss to Ohio State over the loss to Northern Illinois. I do think Notre Dame is quite overrated here at 7. I do think Notre Dame does get quite a bit of bias for being Notre Dame, but at the end of the day, it's not too surprising that an Indiana team coming out of nowhere with a very, very low strength of schedule is going to be down here instead of a Notre Dame who started in the poll and never left. At 11, SMU. They take the spot over Alabama, and they should. This SMU team has to make the playoff over Alabama. You are an 8 seed. You will lose by 3 points on a last-second field goal in your conference championship, and 11-2. 11-2. Alabama is a 9-3 team. They lost to Vanderbilt, as well as getting blown out by Oklahoma, and you can't get mad about SMU being here for handling business against bad teams when the team that they are vying for a spot with is a team that couldn't take care of business, a team that lost to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, two 6-6 teams. Alabama fans, cry me a river. It's the third time you've ever missed the college football playoff, and you very easily could have made it by beating Vanderbilt or Oklahoma. I don't want to hear anything out of Alabama fans, although I know they're going to be loud. SMU deserves this spot. You cannot drop a team out of the playoffs for, playing in a conference championship and playing a close game, playing a very good game. Then at 12, you have Clemson, lowest ranked conference champion. I do think the selection committee, knowing they would put SMU in and leaving Clemson below them, is kind of interesting. At the same time, I agree with Clemson's poll ranking staying quite low, considering how close that game was and the losses on their resume, including the blowout to Georgia and the very recent loss to South Carolina. Overall, I think the selection committee got it right. I think these are the correct 12 teams to have in here. I'd switch up the seeding a tiny bit, but these are the correct 12 teams to have, and most of them are, in fact, in the right spot. So, I love it. I had already said, Alabama doesn't deserve anything. I thought South Carolina was better than them, so I'm so happy they didn't make it. SMU was the last spot revealed, and when they revealed it, me and my dad both jumped up and scared the cats. I mean, Alabama, Alabama's out, America won. It's classic. But SMU definitely did earn their spot by taking care of the bad teams, and it's still, their only 2 losses are 3-point losses against 2 good teams, one being Clemson, who made the playoffs, and then a BYU team who started the season 9-0. SMU definitely deserves a spot, and they have had themselves a pretty magical season, considering this is their first season of Power 5 football. But let's hop into some predictions. I'm going to make my predictions for every single game, every single one of these first games, and then I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to do a full bracket, and of course, I'll update these predictions as the first round plays out, because I'm probably not going to get all these picks right, because I usually don't. Alright everyone, let's get into it. The predictions for every single round. Let's get into this first round. These matchups, they're big time. The teams here, they have a home field advantage. That means a lot, especially for teams like Penn State, Texas. These teams, they're going to enjoy those home field advantages while they last in this first round. And let's start from the very top. Clemson at Texas. Who wins this one? no doubt in my mind, Texas handles business in this one. Texas is just so much more talented. It doesn't really compare. This is a Texas team that just played extremely close with the Georgia Bulldogs, a team that absolutely murdered Clemson early in the season. And it just comes down to Texas. We know they're a top-tier team in terms of talent, and Clemson got in here off some pretty weird circumstances. So I'm going to have to take Texas at home against the Clemson Tigers, and it's a pretty easy selection. Tennessee at Ohio State, the best game of this first round. The 8-9 matchup looking incredible. And I'd like to point out, Oregon as the 1 seed here got absolutely screwed. I would prefer if they would make the college football playoffs reseeded the way it is in the NFL, where if a 7 seed wins, they play the 1 seed. I think as the highest seed, you should be playing the lowest seed to come out of the first round, regardless of how it's built up. Because, let's be honest, this top bracket with Clemson, Texas, Tennessee, Ohio State, Oregon, and Arizona State is much stronger than this bottom side of the bracket with SMU, Penn State, Boise State, Indiana, Notre Dame, and Georgia. It's just true. Oregon got the 1 seed, and going straight by seeding, they're going to have to play Ohio State and Texas on the way to the national championship. It's a rough one. I do think they should make it reseeded in the future. But Tennessee, Ohio State. Let's actually get into this game. It's going to be in Ohio State. I don't think the weather is going to be a huge factor for that one. I think Tennessee will be all right, although it will be colder than they're used to for sure. But Ohio State, I have to take Ohio State. This is a Tennessee team that has looked solid. They've had a good season, but one of the things they rely on a lot is Dylan Sampson, their running back, and he is incredible. But Ohio State has one of the most dominant defensive lines in all of college football, and I think that's going to show in this game. I think Ohio State's defense is what's going to propel them over the Volunteers in this first round, especially at home in the shoe. I think they're going to take this one out, but this is going to be the best game of the first round, and it's going to be very close. SMU at Penn State. Look, Penn State, already a more talented team. We know this. Already a more talented team. They're going to have home field advantage, though. And you're taking a team from Texas and SMU, and you're bringing them up to Pennsylvania in the end of December in Beaver Stadium. This is not going to be fun for SMU. This is this is a nightmare matchup for them. Going from Texas, playing in the ACC, to Beaver Stadium in the middle of the winter. It's going to be rough for them. Penn State, obviously, not only is the weather an advantage, but that stadium is going to be rocking for a playoff game. And I saw a lot from this Penn State game this Penn State team in the Big Ten championship game. SMU, if Oregon could not stop this offense, SMU won't either, and I think Penn State's defense is still their staple, although the performance against Oregon wasn't great. So I will be taking Penn State in a pretty easy one over SMU, which is going to be disappointing. There's going to be a lot of people on SMU's head saying Alabama should have got in, Alabama would have won, Alabama would have kept it closer, etc. The selection committee still made the correct choice putting SMU in here, but I do think Penn State is going to handle them pretty easily. And then Indiana versus Notre Dame, the two Indiana teams playing in South Bend. Who's going to win this one? And look, what it comes down to, for me, is this Notre Dame team has played nobody. This Indiana team has played nobody. This Notre Dame team has also showed me they can lose at home to Northern Illinois University. This Indiana team did not look great against Ohio State whatsoever, but I saw some flashes. Saw some flashes of some good. And I think Cignetti, Indiana's head coach, is that guy. Is a great coach in the NCAA. I have Indiana pulling this one out in the 10-7 matchup in a South Bend. Indiana is going to take care of Notre Dame in an upset, the only upset of the first round. This Indiana team is going to the quarterfinals. So, on to quarterfinals. These are the matchups. Texas playing Arizona State. And remember, these are on neutral sites now. Those home field advantages, non-existent. Texas, Arizona State, Ohio State, Oregon, rematch. Penn State, Boise State, Indiana, Georgia. And look, Oregon fans are probably pretty mad right now, because Georgia seemingly has a pretty easy game. Penn State is playing a group of 5 team, and Texas is playing Arizona State, and they have to play Ohio State. I am sure they're not thrilled about that one. But let's start at the top. Texas, Arizona State. Who's winning this one? Arizona State. They're playing the best football they have all season right now, and they are coming off of a bye. They didn't just get bruised up by the Clemson Tigers, but Texas will still win this one. Once again, there is a talent gap in Arizona State. While their Cinderella run has been awesome, it's going to end here because Texas is just so much more talented, and there's a point where you can't take down a team with such a talent gap there. But Ohio State, Oregon, we're gonna wait. We're gonna go to the next game and then come back to them at the end. Penn State, Boise State. Boise State, another team. Awesome run, awesome season. I love it. But Penn State does have more talent. Penn State does have more physicality. And what it comes down to for this game specifically is Boise State's passing offense doesn't scare me too much. It doesn't. Penn State's passing defense is the hole in their team. We saw it against Oregon, and we saw it in the passing downs against Ohio State. Boise State's passing game does not scare me. What does is Ashton Jeanty, the Heisman candidate. And at this point, probably my prediction to win the Heisman, as he got Boise State to the 3 seed. But Penn State has one of the best run defenses in all of college football, and it's going to show in this one. They're going to take down Boise State purely off of the fact that they're just bigger. They're just bigger. And Boise State, incredible run. They just don't match up well with Penn State whatsoever. Then, Indiana, Georgia. Georgia is off a bye. Indiana just had a tough one in South Bend. It's Georgia. Indiana, again, just hasn't proved much. Hasn't played anyone notable just yet. Beating Notre Dame, they show that they can do it. They're here. But a Georgia team, they've already proven who they can compete with. And they're going to be coming off of a bye. Kirby Smart is going to have a week to game plan for these teams. I will be taking Georgia in a heartbeat. But Ohio State, Oregon, who wins it? Who wins it? It's going to be Oregon. I really wanted to choose Ohio State because this is a team that I've been very high on all season, including saying they'd be the national champions. However, Ohio State is coming off of a game against Tennessee, a physical SEC team, and it's gonna hurt. They're gonna come into this game hurt. Oregon, they have 3 weeks to just game plan for these teams and sit around and rest. That could blow up in their face. Ohio State could just be hot. They could get hot. I don't see that happening. See Tennessee as a very physical team, a team that is going to leave Ohio State black and blue as they roll into this game against Oregon, and Oregon is going to take advantage of that as such a fast-paced team, as such a fast team in general, and they're going to make it past Ohio State. So, on to the semifinals. Texas, Oregon, Penn State, Georgia. Great games. Look, I'm not a huge fan of the 12-team playoff. I thought 8 teams would be better, and I think the formatting could also be better. But we're getting some incredible games here. I'm so glad they expanded it, even if I don't agree with the ways they did expand it. We're getting some great football here. Some great high-stakes football in this 12-team playoff. Starting with Texas, Oregon. Texas, they've played Clemson, they've played Arizona State, but Oregon, coming off of probably a close one against Ohio State. Both of these teams battered, both of these teams bruised, but who's going to take it? I'm going with Oregon. This is a Texas team who hasn't impressed me just yet. They have a lot of talent. I don't doubt their capabilities. I don't doubt their ceiling. But their best wins have been Texas A&M and Vanderbilt. They've got past Clemson and Arizona State now, but those are no Oregon. Oregon has so much talent, and Dan Lanning is such an incredible coach. They're going to take down Texas. And honestly, it might be a little more convincing than it should be. Penn State playing Georgia. And look, Georgia, they got the bye, but they went and played a tough, physical Indiana team. Well, Penn State got to play SMU and Boise State. Virtually two Group of 5 teams. And they're going to be far less physical than Indiana. So, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that this Penn State team wins this game. And I'm going to go with Penn State. I'm going to go with them. Georgia's quarterback issues have been so prevalent. Have been so prevalent. Carson Beck throwing interceptions or getting injured. Either way, this Penn State defense is built to create turnovers and to stop the run. You aren't going to be able to rely on Trevor Etienne the way you have. Georgia, they just don't match up well. Their defense is going to hold Penn State's offense pretty well. This is going to be a defensive battle. But if there's one defense that I trust more to create turnovers, it's going to be Penn State with Carson Beck on the other side of the field. Georgia fans are going to be calling for Carson Beck's head. Because Penn State, their offense, it's not great. And they're going to stall out a lot. But Drew Aller does not turn the ball over. Nick Singleton does not turn the ball over nearly as much as Georgia has this season. And with that, I think Penn State is going to take down Georgia and meet Oregon in the national championship in a Big Ten championship rematch. Here it is. Who wins this one? Let's take a look at their paths to get here. Oregon plays Ohio State and Texas, two of the best teams in the NCAA, two of the best constructed, most talented teams in all of college football. Takes them down. They're feeling fantastic. And they've already played teams better than Penn State. They've won. Penn State comes off of 3 straight wins. SMU and Boise State, they roll through. And then Georgia, a tough one, a physical one, but they make it here. Who wins this game? They're probably just as hurt. 2 teams by Oregon that are physical. They're going to hurt in Ohio State and Texas. Penn State has played 3 games. They didn't get that bye. This is going to be a great matchup, just like the Big Ten championship was. But who wins it? Who is your national champion? And ladies and gentlemen, I believe they will complete the 16-0 season, and the Oregon Ducks will be your national champions. The Oregon Ducks will beat the Penn State Nittany Lions in the national championship, complete their 16-0 season, and win the Natty. This playoff is going to be incredible. This is my prediction. This Oregon team has shown me so much, and I think they match up very well against Penn State coming out of that weak side of the bracket. This Oregon team has been a team that I hated on very early. I said they didn't have an identity. I said they missed the playoffs. I said they lose to Ohio State and Michigan. I did not like this team. They proved me wrong. Dan Lanning created an identity for this team, and they have looked unbelievable. So cohesive. Just every piece of this team working so well. And I think they match up very well against Texas and Penn State. They're just going to have to get past Ohio State in their first game after 3 weeks of rest, and I think they can do that. The Oregon Ducks will be your national champions in January, but I'm looking forward to these playoffs so much, and I'm going to be covering the entire thing right here on the podcast. So make sure to stay tuned for all those coming out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.